Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the AEW Revolution 2021 report. Everyone knows, or if you listen to this channel at any length, you know I'm a big AEW fan. However, I found the pay per view in general to be underwhelming last night. Everybody worked hard. There were some matches that were really good. There was a lot of stuff, though, that screamed about the problems with this company as a whole, and it is disturbing to see that they are the best company in the US right now, maybe second in the world to New Japan, but they are sadly lacking with some things. And it's not the things that a lot of people are complaining about. Britt Baker and Maki Oich, and I know I pronounced that wrong, my apologies, with Rebel defeating Thunder Rosa and Riho. Match was good. This is part of the pre-show. They get a good bit of time. Finish is a little bit off, but they did what they could. Rebel gets involved, but everyone was super over. I think that's because a lot of the crowd had been coming out for the first time. This is the first crowd of about 1,300 in the pandemic, so maybe we're closing near to the end of the pandemic. Anyway, Baker and Riho start with a back and forth exchange. Good exchange. Baker hits a kick and a forearm strike. Riho hits a couple drop kicks and a Rana. Both tag out. And Rosa and Itoich, they trade holds a bit. Then there's some shoulder tackle stuff. Strike trades with the Japanese star coming out on top of that. And then she does her typical spots. Rosa drops face first onto the top turnbuckle and tags out. Riho comes in, hits 619. Rosa tags back in. Chinlock. Riho tries a shotgun drop kick, and Atoich still comes in for the hold. Riho gets tagged. Baker trips her from the floor. Gives Atoich an opening. Atoich missing a Kikoshi and tags out. Baker begins to work over Riho. Atoich gets another tag for the match because there's a more traditional babyface heel dynamic structure, and Riho selling babyface in peril. Rosa gets a hot tag and hits Senton for near fall. Atoich makes a blind tag. Baker hits a sling blade, and then there's a near fall from Atoich on Rosa. Rosa comes back, hits a stunner. Everyone hits a bunch of moves. And then Riho tags in, tries a Shining Wizard, and Atoich turns it into a single leg crab. Nice little spot there. Baker hits an air raid crash for a 2 count on Riho. Rosa makes a save. Rosa tags in. Trades cradles with Baker for a series of near falls. Rebel jumps on the apron and hits Baker. Rosa hits a DVD on Baker for a 2 count, and Atoich saves Riho, hits a dive, and there we go. Jim Ross enters, and AEW World Tag Team Championship match. Bucks defeat Jericho and MJF to retain the titles. This is the opener to the pay-per-view. Really good match, different than a typical Bucks match. And there's more brawling and more actual selling along the way. Story of the match is decent. Bucks come out. They are firing punches from the beginning. And then it's kind of sort of seen more as a blood feud type thing. Their opponents do take over on them. They brawl on the outside. Bucks hit a Nick Buck hits a 450. Wardlow trips Matt from the floor, and that turns things into the favor of Jericho and MJF. Matt cuts off a... Nick gets a hot tag and goes nuts with his trademark spots, bunch of super kicks. Nick mistimes a facebuster into a lion salt from Jericho, which actually looked like a comfortable planned botch, if that makes sense. Matt gets tag, and then his temper gets the best of him a little bit. MJF and Jericho work over Matt. Jericho hits a bunch, and then we see Nick with a code breaker. MJF takes out the ref. Jericho hits Matt with a baseball bat, and MJF hits the heat seeker. Matt kicks out of that. Nick gets a hot tag. Bucks hit stereo crossbody dives on the floor, and Bucks hit the BTE trigger on Jericho. MJF saves Jericho from the ending there. Matt and Nick basically bounce him with several super kicks. I mean, it's literally probably a dozen, if not more, which I think is stupid. They've just killed the super kick. I understand you're all Shawn Michaels fans. I understand, rah, 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 we're the Hardy Boys of the new generation. But it's like, dude, why are you killing moves? Anyway, they hit Jericho with a Meltzer driver. Matt pins Jericho, retain the titles. Then they go... JR, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone preview the card. JR sounds very unwell, hoarse, and though it's painful for him to talk. Rey Fenix and Pac win the tag team casino battle royal. I hated this. A lot of people loved it. There's 30 guys in there, and they're just doing spots, and it's a waste of time. There is no reason why we can't have a, let's say, third national company that's decent with, 30 talent being in here. There's probably 60 or, well, maybe that's an over-investment, but let's say there's 50 people on this show. You don't need a roster that's that big, plus you have enhancement talent. You don't need that. Anyway, so 15 teams, so 30 guys, 90-second intervals in between entrants after the first two teams enter. They didn't exactly keep the best time. And then, of course, they list all the people. Bear Country looks strong in this. There's a few uncomfortable eliminations. Final four were Jungle Boy and Phoenix. They tear the house down. I'm not going play-by-play with this because, to be perfectly honest with you, A, no one cares, and B, it's all just a series of brawling spots. The camera misses half the eliminations, and it's just goofy. Jungle Boy and Phoenix do end up going quite well. Jungle Boy probably comes out the best of the whole Battle Royal concept. Phoenix hits a tope suicida through the ropes and into the front row of the audience. Jungle Boy hits a poison Rana. Phoenix wins with a thrust kick and a clothesline over the top. Phoenix is an amazing wrestler and one of the best flying in the world. This is, I mean, it took a lot of time. It wasn't really good, but it's a sign that everyone deserves to be on the pay-per-view, and we're all nice little participation flags, snowflakes. I don't get this. Anyway, Dasha interviews Paul White. He gives a clue to the identity of mystery signing, saying that no one will outwork him. DDP and Al Snow from OVW were shown in the audience. They hinted at an OVW AEW trade agreement of some sort. Lengthy video package for the women's title match. They do some backstory on Mizunami and her retirement, and then coming out of retirement to return because of this type of an opportunity. And obviously, Hiroshita defeats Ryo Mizunami to retain the title. This match was good. Much better than a lot of women's matches. They almost did too much and too many near falls, and this is kind of problematic. Uh, they went about 3 or 4 near falls, too many. Crowd is with them at least during the second half, if not 2/3 of the match. And Mizunami has an interesting charisma and is a really decent worker. Shida has proven with her, I believe they said 260 some odd day title reign, um, that in fact she's one of the best women in the area, if not the world. They open with some um, basically a lot of striking sequences early. Shida hits a driver and a superplex for near fall. Shida comes up, hits a Tanahashi style maneuver. Then they trade strikes again. Mizunami gets the best of that. Mizunami has the power advantage throughout the match. Mizunami hits a decent Uranagi and a spear. Follows up with a top rope leg drop for the near fall. She had won other matches in the tournament with the top rope leg drop, so this is probably one of the most dramatic in the run. They trade strikes for a bit more lariats. Gamagiri by Shida. Mizunami hits a lariat of her own. Shida hits a Falcon Arrow, and Tamakashi knee strike, and then hits another Falcon Arrow, but gets a near fall. Mizunami hits the lariat again. Shida comes back and then uses an eye poke for a near fall. Shida hits another series of offense. Mizunami reverses into a crucifix for a 2 count. Mizunami tries DDT. Shida turns it into a Uranagi. And then Shida hits yet another of her attempted maneuvers. Shida hits a corkscrew dive and gets the pin. Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero run in after the match. The match itself was decent. I'm not sure that 2 Japanese women is where you go if you're trying to get an American crowd on a pay-per-view. I think they cater too much to the fact of the smart crowd. I have no problem with having international talent if you have an American talent to balance them out and or to tell the story. I think this is better left for YouTube or Die Hard show, but that's just my opinion anyway. Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero running after the match. They go after Shida and Mizunami. Shida tries to save Mizunami, but Baker, Rebel, and Atoich ran in. Rebel hits Shida with a crutch, and that's that. Thunder Rosa runs in, clears the ring. Thunder Rosa, probably one of the better women they have on their roster right now. I don't know if she's officially there or still with the NWA or what that looks like, but Thunder Rosa, one of the best women in the world. Anyway, Double or Nothing is announced for May 30th in Jacksonville. Alex Marvez, my gosh, does he still have a job? Anyway, he's with Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy backstage interview. Miro, Kip, and Penelope Ford enter. Sabian and Miro attack Cassidy and Taylor. Miro demands his music is played. Miro drags Taylor to the ring. Taylor's bleeding to start. The match begins. This didn't really need to be on the pay-per-view. Basically, it's Miro laying out anybody in sight. Sabian and Miro work over Taylor. Cassidy still backstage, selling, getting beat up. Anyway, Orange finally gets out there. He's selling the heck out of his back. He manages an Orange punch to Miro on the ramp. Orange and Taylor hit the best friends. Strong Zero for a 2 count. Sabian and Miro. Basically, there's a save. There's a good bit where Cassidy takes out Miro for a minute or two, but Miro comes back with a pretty hard kick. There's a point where Sabian gets knocked off, checks on Penelope. Forward, Miro hits a low blow on Orange Cassidy, and then there's a stun dog by Cassidy, and a second or third orange punch of the match. Penelope jumps on the apron. Miro bumps her off, and then Taylor and Miro hit a bunch of tags. Miro hits pump kick and uses the game over for the win. I suppose the idea is the teaser where late in the match, Kip Sabian goes to check on his wife on the floor, ignoring the match. Miro wins anyway, but looks rather disgusted by all this. Anyway, we go back to Why Do I Have a Job Marvez, and he's with Jericho, MJF, Santana, and Ortiz backstage. Jericho announced that the Inner Circle will have a war council on Wednesday. Really? In the middle of a pandemic, we need to have a war council? Can't you come up with a better name? Anyway, promises that changes are going to happen. MJF agrees and says they need to change. I assume there's going to be a battle over who leads the Inner Circle from here on out. Hangman Page and Matt Hardy have the best, I guess you'd say, more traditional style match on the show. Up next, Hangman Page gets the win. They do go a little long here, but they tell a decent story. There is a happy ending in the process here. Dark Order and Hangman solidify their friendship even further. Hardy tries some strikes early. Paige gains an advantage. Paige is obviously younger, quicker, and more valuable. Punches in the corner. Then we see they brawl to the outside. Hardy posts Paige, and ultimately Hardy starts working over the fingers like a not to be mentioned Marty Scurll might do. Hardy traps Paige's hand and works over it and tries to break his hand on the ramp, then kicks the stage. Hardy continues working over the right hand. Private Party runs in, provides a distraction for Hardy. Paige comes back with a clothesline, goes for the buckshot lariat. Hardy turns it into a side effect for a near fall. Dark Order runs in to save Paige. Private Party trades and tries to interfere again. Paige hits the buckshot lariat for the pin. Dark Order celebrates Paige with some beers. Match goes really long, but I mean, they do a lot of back and forth stuff. There's even a spot where Paige kind of goes for the outside in spear, and Hardy hits side effect. I mean, match is probably the best on the show. Anyway, next up the ladder match, Scorpio Sky, Cody Rhodes, Lance Archer, with Jake Roberts, Penta, and Max Caster, and the newcomer Ethan Page, with Scorpio Sky winning the Face of the Revolution ladder match, and the TNT title match is what's here for the winner. And Scorpio Sky being the winner means we will get Darby Allin and Scorpio Sky. The more I do this review, the more I realize how underwhelmed I am by this show. The ladder match is perfectly fine. Cody and Penta take a bunch of punishment throughout the match. Car crash that really didn't need to be here, especially when you have the street fight and the exploding barbed wire. It felt like gimmicks just for the sake of gimmicks. Anyway, Penta hits a sling blade on Archer. Paige powerbomb Sky on a ladder, and Archer gets sandwiched in the ladder, and Penta gives Cody a destroyer on the ladder into a ladder bridge. Cody spends a lot of time selling his shoulder. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes some time off after this, what with having a child and having what appears to be a legit shoulder injury that's been going on for the last several weeks. Injury angle, Cody's helped to the back after the destroyer, but he does come back to the match later on. Crossroads from Cody, and a frog splash on the ladder by Scorpio Sky. An elbow drop off the ladder by Caster, and a powerbomb off the ladder by Paige to Archer. Paige, who is one of my favorite people, Ethan Page. I hope they do good things with him. Finally, good to see him in a national company that actually has some traction to it. His time in Impact was fine, but I mean, this is a level up for him. I'm so glad he didn't go to WWE where they would have wasted him anyway. Um, anyway, so Paige powerbombs Archer. Jake Roberts jumps up, hits a short arm clothesline to Paige. Penta hits a clothesline to Jake. Cody hits top rope cutter that looks awful onto a ladder. Penta hits Cody with a chair and then climbs the ladder himself. By the way, they are fighting over a brass ring. Sky hits Penta with a chair. Cody jumps back up and climbs the ladder with Sky. Sky punches Cody off the ladder and grabs the brass ring. Sky and Darby will be on Dynamite. Christian Cage signs with AEW. Announcers throw to the ring announcer. Justin Roberts makes the introduction. Christian comes out, signs the contract. Christian signs in the center of the ring. He opens his jacket to reveal an Outwork Everyone t-shirt, and that will be his apparent catchphrase here. Then we go to the street fight with Sting and Darby Allin defeating Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Cinematic match. I don't like them. I wish they'd stop doing them. I understand the pandemic necessitated them, but now, at this point, I get why they're done. I understand intellectually the benefit of doing them for older talent, especially someone like Sting, but that still doesn't mean I have to like them. Cage and Starks drive to this warehouse in the middle of nowhere that happens to have a wrestling ring in it. They are part of doing things here. Sting's driving an old pickup truck, and Allin is riding on the tailgate. The match is in the middle of nowhere in a warehouse. Sting and the ring is surrounded by people in robes and Sting masks. They begin in the ring. RB does a wall walking spot with Cage. RB? Is that like Darby and Allin put into one? Or is that like a food chain? Anyway, Allin and Cage paired off, and they're on the outside. Sting and Starks are in the ring. Sting hit a couple of Stinger splashes in the middle. Sting and Starks are in the ring. They brawl around. Sting throws the bat at Starks. Starks dares Sting to get rid of the bat. Sting tosses it away. Sting walks off to find Cage and Allin. Cage and Allin are fighting in the stairwell. Cage lifts Allin in a vertical suplex position and carries him up a flight of stairs. Cage drops Allin onto a trash can. Sting saves Allin and hits a shotgun dropkick into the ladder. Starks spreads Allin or spears him into a wall. Might as well spread him across the wall too. Sting uses fire extinguisher on Cage. Allin hits a suplex on Cage, and then Starks takes out Sting with a 2x4. Starks misses a spear into a column. Allin hits a coffin drop off of the column, which was impressive looking. Masked Man runs in, slams Allin into the column. Masked Man reveals himself to be Will Hobbs. Why he needs to wear a mask, I don't know. Hook runs in as well. Cage shoves Sting to the ground. Team Taz goes 3-on-1 for a few minutes. Cage and Hobbs toss Allin through a pane of glass. That looked brutal. Team Taz then stalks Sting. Cage hits Sting with a shovel. Allin throws Sting a bat from way up in the warehouse. Sting makes a comeback with the bat. He breaks the bat over Cage's back. Sting hits Cage with the shovel. Allin hits Cage with an elbow drop from about 25 feet in the air. Through a crash pad, Sting and Starks go back into the ring. Sting misses a splash. Starks hits a spear for near fall. Starks hits a low blow. Sting reverses a powerbomb attempt into a sunset flip for near fall of his own. Sting hits a scorpion death drop for the pin on Starks. This is fine, except where do you go from here? If you've blown the feud off, where does Sting go from here? Darby Allin's the TNT champion, which means he's basically second in the company, maybe third if you say the tag titles mean something too. But Sting got his feel good moment. Where do you go with it? Matt Jackson, Ray Phoenix has been announced for Wednesday's Dynamite. Baker, Rebel, and Marty Atoich versus Thunder Rosa, Shida, and Ryo Mizunami. Darby Allin, Scorpio Sky, all of this are announced for Wednesday's Dynamite. Main event is, in fact, next. AEW World Championship exploding barbed wire death match. Kenny Omega defeats Jon Moxley to retain the title. I don't like these style of matches. They're not my cup of tea. This is the best one I've seen, and I've probably seen at least half a dozen to 10 of them over the years, majority of which are from Japan. It was good because it did tell a good story, and I give credit to Jon Moxley for that. Omega still doesn't impress me as anything other than a tackle dummy who can be carried to good matches, but I don't see where everyone says he's this fantastic worker. I don't see it. Anyway, Moxley's wearing a tribute jacket to Asushi Onita, and they do some brawling around the ropes. They obviously 3 sides of the rings are roped off with barbed wire. 4th side was actually good touch by the announcers. Said that they left the 4th side open should the doctor need to enter. They basically brawled to the ramp. There's a trash can full of weapons. Omega throws powder in Moxley's eyes, sets up the first explosion as Moxley stumbles backwards. And then Omega gets whipped into the ropes for an explosion. Moxley hits a shotgun dropkick on Omega for a second explosion. They both go through barbed wire boards. Moxley is bleeding from the head. Then Omega mixes in a little bit of wrestling, gets a moonsault, a kudo crusher on a trash can, and a one-winged angel attempt. Moxley pops off after 2 snapdragons and hits a side slam on a chair. Moxley wraps barbed wire around his arm, tries a bulldog choke with the barbed wire. That was brutal, and that looked pretty cool. They fight to the apron. Moxley hits a paradigm shift onto the apron through an exploding barbed wire board on the floor. Moxley's bleeding now. Countdown clock appears, and the sound begins. The clock's only there for a second or two. Playing, Moxley fires up, goes for some near falls. Omega hits a low blow, stacks Moxley up with a powerbomb for the 2 count. Omega hits a one-winged angel. Moxley kicked at the ropes at 2, causes an explosion. So, Moxley could claim that he's the first one in America to break up the one-winged angel, and or Omega could basically say, no, it's just because you caused an explosion. Anyway, cool little spot there. Moxley grabs barbed wire bat. Gallows and Anderson run in, both take shots at Moxley. They hand Omega an exploding barbed wire bat. Omega hits Moxley with the exploding bat for the 2 count. Omega hits a one-winged angel on a chair. Moxley couldn't make it to the ropes this time, and Omega scores the pin. Gallows and Anderson handcuff Moxley after the match. Remember, the explosions aren't supposed to explode until basically the 30-minute mark. Omega continues to beat on Moxley with the barbed wire bat. 1 minute countdown hits. Omega and the Good Brothers run for the hills. Eddie Kingston runs onto the stage with Butcher and Blade trying to hold him back. Kingston shoves them aside, climbs into the ring. He doesn't have time to drag Moxley out, so he lays on top of his fallen friends as the final explosions go off. Referees, medical personnel, and agents tend to Moxley and Kingston as the show closes. The explosions were an abysmal failure as it relates to the grand finale. It was weak, and Moxley and Kingston look silly, holding each other like they've just had a romance scene in a movie when there's no real explosion. Uh, but it is what it is. Um, it certainly was a violent spectacle. It had a lot of panache to it, and I understand the story with Kingston. Overall, though, I think this is the worst pay per view that AEW has done since the inception of the company. Too many gimmicks, lackluster surprises, and overall, it is starting to feel like they're throwing stuff at the wall. Previous pay per views, I could honestly say there were good matches that one had to go out of their way to see. And other than maybe the Hardy match, and if you like the spectacle of the barbed wire match, this felt like an underwhelming pay per view. Anyway, we'll be back with Raw later tonight and all the fallout from the pay per view over the course of the week. In any event, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.